Hey everyone, and welcome to another Game Explained discussion. I'm your host, Derrick, and I'm joined today by Andre Seegers and Ash Paulson to answer your questions about Pokemon Sun and Moon. So let's get to them. Alright guys, so we put out the call on, Andre's personal Twitter because we'd be inundated by questions if we did it on the main Twitter, so apologies for that. That's a good reason to follow all of us individually on Twitter though. Special stuff like that. So now that plugs out of the way, let's get to the questions, which we still have plenty of. And first up comes from at Storming Shadows, who wants to know, in Pokemon Sun and Moon, do you notice any major differences apart from time?
Okay, well, this is one question I myself feel comfortable answering, as I'll be otherwise relying on Ash for most of them, since he's played far more Pokemon games than I have. In this specific case, I couldn't tell you, because we literally only played Pokemon Sun at the preview event. So, yeah. Unfortunately, we can't tell you much beyond what we already know about the differences between the games, as much as I wish we could. But this might be a good time just to throw out there that, we are basing all these answers on playing this game for 2 hours. So we're going to answer as best as we can, but we don't know everything. And of course, there's also some stuff we can't talk about as well. So there you go. Now I'm done. I'm out. I'll chime in occasionally if I have an answer.
Yeah, right, exactly. I'm on the spot here. All right.
Yeah, Andre's the biggest Pokemon fan.
Well, you know
obviously. Yeah. All right. Next up is at PBJMS. I'm going to just spell it out. I know you can't give specifics, but did you see any new Pokemon?
Yes. Without specifics, yes.
We literally can't give specifics. Yeah, so
we can't say anything.
Yeah. But yes, so apparently we'll be encountering Pokemon we have not seen yet early in the game, which is a good sign.
Right.
So, alright, next up is Aaron Rules 380, who wants to know, I heard Workup was received as an HM in Digital Spy's preview. Can you confirm, and did you see any TMs?
Okay, so this is something I'm going based on memory, but I believe Digital Spy may have made a mistake because I definitely did not get any HMs. Like, that was not a thing. I believe we got a TM, and that might have been Workup, but I can say for sure it's not an HM, and I did not get an HM in the first 2 hours of the game. But I did get a TM, and that might be what it was. I just can't specifically remember. I'm sorry about that, but yeah.
Well, it makes sense to me that Workup is not an HM because it's not a physical move. It's
never been an HM.
Stat increase, yeah. So it seems kind of weird about that. But yeah, that would make more sense that it's a TM. So there is probably miscommunication somewhere. But yeah, that makes sense to me. But yeah, TMs are back, and apparently Workup is probably one of them based off all this. But all right, next up is Kyle Moffat 1, who wants to know, can the game still be played with the D-pad despite grid-based movement being removed?
This is actually a great question. No, as a matter of fact. So, at least in the demo I played, or not the demo, it was the actual game, D-pad had no use whatsoever. So it wasn't like you could walk in 8 directions using the D-pad. The D-pad has no function, and actually, instead, when you use the analog stick, the default speed is just running. So you can run in any direction now, and there's no more grid-based movement, as you said, but there is no D-pad movement.
Okay. Is the D-pad still able to be used during menus? Just as a follow-up?
That's a good question. I don't know for sure. I don't want to say either way.
I know for myself, naturally, if I'm in a menu, I just naturally go to the D-pad to
I know.
Things.
I don't know if I do the same thing, so I feel like I would have tried it, and then if I remembered it didn't work, then I just would go using the analog stick, but I don't remember specifically if it did or not work.
Mm-hmm. So going off of that, Busterman64 has a really simple question. Do you start off with the running shoes? And you kind of answered that already, but you want to elaborate?
Sure. So, you do and you don't, in the sense that you can run, running speed is your default speed from the get-go, but you're not able to do that because you got running shoes. That's just been worked into the gameplay now. So really, the better way to answer it would be you don't need running shoes anymore because you start off with your default speed, just being able to run around.
Mm-hmm. Can you walk slower just by holding the control pad just a little, just slightly, or did you not try that out?
No, I don't. I feel like I might have tried it, but this is actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because I did ask the Nintendo rep if stalking Pokemon was back, or whatever you call it, sneaking up on them, and that is not back. So you have less reason to move slowly now, because there's that whole mechanic has been removed from the game.
Okay.
So, yeah, there aren't these Pokemon who show up in patches of grass anymore that you can sneak up on.
That makes sense. So, yeah. All right, next up is Seafoam Gaming, who wants to know, does the game slow down in battles outside of battles like an X, Y, and or AS, or is that finally fixed? Also, how's the challenge?
I don't recall seeing very many instances of slowdown. I think any slowdown I saw was typically within battles, and I don't feel like it was as big of a problem as it was in X and Y and Oras. So I think they definitely have done at least a little optimization in the game engine. I'm not going to go out and say that there was no slowdown, but I believe what slowdown there was limited to battles, and I don't recall there being very, very much.
Yeah, I do remember the battles being just a little bit choppy at points. The only time I really remember it getting a little bit more choppy was during the Pokefinder segments, which...
You're right.
I also had the 3D turned on for that, which might be affecting it. But those definitely had a noticeable frame rate hit.
Yeah, that's a good point. The Pokefinder segments are super choppy with the 3D on.
So you might as well not use it. Got it.
I mean, it really is. It's like X and Y and Oras. Really, I mean, even if there is limited 3D, even more limited this time around, I don't really know why you'd use it in this case because it really hurts the performance of the game. So, yeah.
How did you feel about the challenge? Going off his last question.
It feels. I mean, it's Pokemon. It feels easy. I mean, it doesn't. I'm sure. I feel like there was one fight later on in my demo that. There was one Pokemon that swept a lot of my team, but that's because it was just a bad typing, and I was still able to knock out that Pokemon with my starter, despite it also having a type disadvantage. So it's just one of those things where, yeah, even if like most of your team gets mowed down by this one bad type matchup, your starter is still so much stronger than the rest of your Pokemon that it can usually sweep.
Okay, so
yeah.
Basically your standard difficulty for...
Yeah, it's not hard. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, next up is Fireblend, who wants to know, was the performance on the regular 3DS or versus new 3DS addressed at any point? So which 3DS did you guys play this on?
New 3DS.
Yeah.
The new 3DS. I guess you didn't have an opportunity to play it on the regular 3DS or see it running in there, so would you...
No.
I mean, I'm assuming if there's still slowdown, I haven't heard anything about optimization or anything else in regards to the new 3DS, so I have a feeling they'll probably be the same, but I'm guessing you guys didn't ask the rep about that?
Well, as a matter of fact, we did, in a manner of speaking, we asked if there were any, differences between playing the game on the 3DS and the new 3DS, and he said no, but, it's kind of an open-ended question the way we asked it, so, I mean, I guess there is a chance that there could be performance issues on the old 3DS that he wouldn't have talked about, but I don't necessarily think that's the case. If anything, I think the new 3DS probably isn't running this game as well as it could to make sure that the experience is, kind of similar for old 3DS owners and new 3DS owners.
Mm-hmm. Next up is X Cookie Dough, who wants to know, does the Rotom Pokedex do anything special?
It talks, right?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it talks, and I mean, there are parts of that we can't talk about, but I wasn't, the Rotom Pokedex didn't blow me away by being some crazy special Pokedex. Like, it didn't change the experience for me. It's cute. I mean, it's kind of cool, but it didn't really, change the experience for me in any meaningful way. But there are aspects to the Rotom Pokedex that we can't talk about yet, I think, so, yeah.
You know what's weird? Despite me not playing much Yokai Watch, it totally gave me a Yokai Watch vibe. I don't know.
Oh, it kind of does, doesn't it?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How so?
I don't know, just in that, I think that the design of it and how, I couldn't tell you specifically. It just gave me that sense.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of some of the viruses from Mega Man Battle Network. It's got this. It almost looks like a household appliance, but with eyes and kind of I don't know. It kind of does have that almost like a Saturday morning cartoon vibe, which is
that's kind of what I was getting at. It felt more cartoony, a little bit more childish almost. Maybe not the best way of putting it, but
yeah, it definitely felt. I guess childish maybe isn't the best word, but it definitely felt like less. I don't know. Mature. I mean, obviously, your Pokédex, less mature. I guess if Pokemon could be considered mature, it's just less it's the Pokédex in previous generations is functional, whereas this one kind of talks to you and it's cute, but it doesn't really change the game that much.
Yeah.
Then we have Azurill Kirby. I probably screwed that up. Did you get a look at the trainer card? If so, can you verify that there aren't gym badges?
Yes, we got to look at the trainer card, but we can't talk about it at all. So I'm just gonna have to cut that question off right there. Sorry about that.
Secret.
Denied.
Yeah.
Oh boy. All right. Then we have Tyke665 who wants to know: did the game feel too easy? One super effective attack KOs everything, for example, to the point where it's not fun anymore. So we already talked about how it's, the standard difficulty of Pokemon, but were you still having fun despite that?
Oh yeah, I was having a great time. Like, I mean, it's not. I didn't feel like it was any easier than other games necessarily. It just was easy, like the other games. But I was still having a great time. So, I mean, yeah, it's easy. But if an easy game or the idea of an easy game bores you, then that might bother you more than it bothered me. But I mean, I knew what I was getting into. I expected it to be easy. But for me, it's more about the exploration and kind of just taking in the world and the adventure aspect. So the lack of challenge didn't bother me.
Okay. Next up is Ukulele Pichu64, who wants to know, is there a tutorial, and if there is, does it feel too long and not needed?
So, yes, there is a tutorial of sorts, but it's not long in the tooth. Like, you don't even get to the tutorial aspect I'm talking about until you've actually already been able to catch a few Pokemon and have a few battles under your belt. So it's not like this heavy-handed force thing where you have to go through it before you even get to have your first fight. It's more just kind of like showing you the ropes type thing, and it was fine. It didn't bother me.
Okay. Then we have King Mario 128, who wants to know, can you customize your character early in the game? Is there any mention of the Ether Foundation early as well?
So, yes and no, respectively. Early, depends on what you mean by early, but I assume that within the first 2 hours counts as early. So, yes, actually, within the first 2 hours when I was playing, I was at least able to get to the point where I was able to change my trainer's hairstyle. And I assume that there would have been a shot for me to go, try on new outfits too. I just didn't get there. So, yes, you can customize your character pretty early on, but there was no mention of the Ether Foundation from what I saw, from what I played.
That makes sense. So, next up we have Dark Throwback, who wants to know, if customization was accessible in the preview, how many options did the boys have compared to the girls? So, were you both boys or both girls, or how did that go?
Oh, we didn't even get to choose, actually, did we? We just started off with one, didn't we, Ash?
You know what? Yeah, I think we did. We didn't get to choose. So that's probably because they didn't want us watching the opening.
Right.
So yeah, that I wouldn't read too much into that. It was just because they said we couldn't see the opening. So we did actually start off with just male trainers. But I mean, I can't say for sure how many options the boys have compared to the girls because I don't know how many they had. I know the girls had more in X and Y. So what I can say is that when I got my hair changed or cut, it was very similar to X and Y in that you get like 2 sets of 4 menu options each or something, like one for style and one for color, and then you just kind of have to hope that it looks like something you like. But I don't know if that's different for girls.
Next up we have FanDudes12345. That's the same number on my luggage.
And your PIN number.
Yeah, no.
Say goodbye to your bank account.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to know, have you met Lillie? Have you met Lillie yet? And if so, how's her personality so far?
Yes. We met Lillie early on. You meet her, very quickly, and her personality is very. Let's see. I mean, she's opposed to Pokemon violence. I mean, if you look at her, she kind of acts like how you think she would. I mean, she's very wafy. She seems a little fragile. She doesn't like watching Pokemon fight, compared to someone like Hau, who's like, yeah, let's go fight our Pokemon. So she's very, kind of wafy and like a good example, for those of you out there who might have played Mega Man Battle Network 6, she's very much like Iris. She actually reminded me of Iris to a T. So if you play that game, there's your comparison.
It always comes back to Mega Man Battle Network.
Really
I know,
does.
Right? It really does. But she really does remind me of that character a lot.
That is Ash's Pokemon.
Mega Man?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Now we have Soaring Latios, who wants to know, does the EXP share for the entire party return, or any item that does the same? Yes,
it does, and you get it fairly early on. Actually, after that tutorial segment I mentioned earlier, or in the question that I answered earlier. So you do get it early on. I can't 100% confirm that you can turn it off like you could in X and Y and Oras, but I'm pretty sure that you can. I don't know why they would take that out. So, but yes, the experience share is back in the form that it has existed in since X and Y.
And by early, though, that was, probably about an hour and a half into our playtime, would you say?
I would say it was more like almost 2 hours. Like, it was near the cutoff point, I would say.
True. Yeah, I guess keep in mind, though, that, we were, talking during this.
True.
So that probably added to the amount of time it might take if you're actually playing it, with the full attention devoted to it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's still faster than X and Y, which you didn't get the XP share until after you defeated the first gym.
I remember that, actually, yeah. So I can say that compared to X and Y, you get the experience share in Sun and Moon much earlier.
Next up, we have another question from Ukulele Pichu64, who wants to know, were there plenty of trainers on the routes you explored, or were most characters just there for the dialogue, so just normal NPCs?
I'd say there was a healthy mix. There were a few trainers, and there were a few, people just to talk to along the routes. There weren't, like, a bunch of trainers, but there was a healthy mix.
About which level were you at by the time you finished up your your playtime?
Oh man, I wasn't prepared for this question. Come on,
that's something that should stick out in your head.
I know. I want to say it was around 11 or 12.
Okay.
I think it was around that, and I think you start at level 5, right? So or your starter does. So yeah, I want to say it was like level 12.
Okay. And didn't feel like any more or less trainers than you typically see in the early game?
I guess for it being the very first route, I guess, again, you're fighting trainer battles earlier on than I feel like you usually do in Pokemon games, so I feel like in that sense it gets started a little more quickly, because you actually, by the time you reach that tutorial segment I talked about, you've already fought a few trainer battles. So, I feel like it's a little quicker to start and get you into the action than some other Pokemon games are.
Next up is Vinyl One Solution, who wants to know, did they give a full listing of how many Pokemon are in the Alola Dex?
No, and if they did, we couldn't tell you. So, no, and we can't basically talk about that.
That would basically be a career ender for us.
Yeah, exactly.
They would solve that problem, just not show it to us at all. But
ever.
Yeah, we have no idea how many Pokemon there are.
Probably take down our system IDs, and if we ever even try to play Pokemon Sun and Moon, even on our own personal 3DSs, they would remotely disable it.
Yeah.
Just get a Samsung to take care of that for them.
Exactly, yeah. Oh, God.
Oh, God, they're out to assassinate us at that point.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have the Sinnoh Savior, who wants to know, did you see any Pokemon that weren't Alolan form? For example, did you see the normal Fire Vulpix or the normal Rattata?
No, that's a great question, but no, we did not.
So it was just the Alolan Rattata that you saw?
Yeah, Alolan there may have been some other Alolan forms that have already been revealed that we've seen, but nothing. We didn't see any of the original forms of Kanto Pokemon.
Okay. That does seem to indicate that the normal forms aren't going to be in the main game, at least, or at least in the main run through.
Yeah, it's possible.
Huh. Anyway, next up is Nintendrone42, who wants to know, how far did you get in the 2-hour preview event?
Well, I got about 2 hours in. No, I'm kidding. What were you going to say, Andre?
It was just enough time for us to get to our first encounter with Team Skull, right? That was the first encounter, yeah.
And that happens in the first major city. So, there's a village, and then there's the first major city after that. And we got to the first major city.
It should be noted that we actually wouldn't be allowed to talk beyond having reached the first trial, which we didn't even do. So that gives you some idea of how far into the game it might be. At the least more than 2 hours in, roughly. So
I think the Nintendo rep told us that. Well, he definitely told us that we got closer than anyone else had gotten. But I think he said we were maybe still, 30 minutes out. So, we didn't even make it to the first trial. So what that tells you a lot there.
And I felt like we were moving at a pretty good clip. We weren't speed running it, but we weren't taking too much time either. So
no, and even though I was kind of lagging behind you just to be a little more explorative, I felt like I could have spent more time kind of exploring around and catching some Pokemon. So I definitely felt like I was still rushing a bit more than I would normally do.
Yeah, you definitely caught up at the end when I got hung up a little bit in the tutorial section, ironically. That's the part that getting me in trouble.
Oh man, I have to learn? I can't do this.
What is this nonsense? I'm not signing for this.
Oh, shoot. Let's see. Next up is Pro Donkus, who wants to know, when could you actually start to catch Pokemon?
It was definitely within the first hour. It was quicker than I expected it to be. So that's one thing I would say is great, is that you're not waiting as long to start catching Pokemon. And there's not this heavy-handed, here's what a Pokeball is, and here's how you use a Pokeball. And, obviously the game teaches you that, but it's a lot quicker, and it gets you in there much faster to start catching Pokemon.
Yeah, more specifically, I would probably peg it as around 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it the standard thing where some character just hands you 5 Pokeballs to start with?
Oh god, I'm trying to remember. I think so. I think you're given a few to start out with. I want to say it's Kukui who gives them to you, but I don't know for sure.
That has to be, because I didn't buy any, so...
Okay, then yeah, there you go. I bought some, but yeah, then you have to have... I think Kukui is the one who gives them to you, but I could be wrong.
Next up, we have Toad the Gamer MP, who wants to know, do the first few hours give information on anything remaining to the plot?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, there are hints of some interesting aspects, but we can't really talk about them. I mean, there isn't anything huge, like there's no big story dump at the beginning or in the first couple hours, but there are a couple of cutscenes that were like, oh, okay, what's this about, and what's this particular thing about? So there are definitely a few kind of minor mysteries posed in the first couple of hours that we don't know the answer to, but even if we did, we couldn't talk about them.
In really vague terms, is there that one we can talk about that we were talking about before this that Derrick was surprised by we didn't mention earlier?
Oh, I think we can, yeah.
Okay,
so... Yeah, so at the very start of the game, your trainer almost... I'm trying to remember why. They're on this bridge, and they fall off because of a kind of a Pokemon attack, and the guardian deity, Tapu Koko, actually rescues your trainer. So that's actually one thing I laughed about with the Nintendo Rep, is that in no other Pokemon game can I think of that your trainer is in mortal danger in the first, 30 minutes of the game. Like, you wake up, you leave your mom's house, and then you almost die because you almost fall off a bridge. So, I don't remember that ever happening in other Pokemon games, so I thought it was kind of funny. But, yeah, so there's something that happens in the Tapu Koko when it rescues you that kind of, hints at something happening later on, but we couldn't talk about it, really.
Yeah. See, the reason I asked you guys about if
I know
Tapu Koko, and you're like, no, we haven't met him. And oh, that guy, the Guardian Deity. Yes.
Didn't realize it was the same guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the reason I asked that is because some of the dialogue when you have your fight with Hau that I saw during the Treehouse event has Hala mention that you encountered and were approved by Tapu Koko. I was like, so when do you meet him? And right there it is. There's the context now for how your trainer encounters this deity Pokemon.
Man, we can't get anything past you, can we?
No.
Damn.
There's a reason I've been doing analyses on these things for the past, 6-7 months now?
Yeah, so essentially that is the context, like you said, Derrick, is that Tapu Koko saves your trainer's life as he or she is falling off a bridge.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Next up is PK Blast, and we kind of answered this already, but we'll get the question out there. Were you able to get to a trial captain?
No. Straight up, no. We almost made it to the first one, but not quite.
Okay. Did you get to meet the trial captain at the very least? Do you have any idea who it is?
Oh, man. I don't think so. I don't think so. But I want to say no, we didn't meet them. It wouldn't be the big kahuna, right? He wouldn't be a trial captain.
Different. Hala's different.
Right, okay, so then no. Then I don't think we know who the trial captain is.
Okay. I was just more curious about whether or not they, introduced the trial captains and then they have, story significance before you actually do the not so far, no. Okay. Then next up we have Wade Goodell, who wants to know, did you encounter any Pokemon that haven't been officially revealed yet? Or Alolan forms? No names or info, just yes or no.
Yeah, we answered this up top, I think, but yes, we did.
That's right.
It's okay.
Next up is Princess Iramesu. Iramesu, I think. Or
Iremsu, maybe? Yeah.
Iremsu, yeah. Anyway, she wants to know, did Team Skull seem to be dense or funny?
Both. That is awesome. They're hilarious, and I cannot wait for the rest of you guys to see how awesome Team Skull is. They're both funny and dense, and they have this kind of fake bravado to them that it's just they're very fun to laugh at. They're great.
Their animation's really good.
Yeah.
They have that gangster flavor.
They definitely do, but it's kind of almost like an exaggerated, it's so exaggerated that it comes back to being just ridiculous. It's pretty great.
Nice. Let's see. We have Riolu Bond, who wants to know, were you allowed to evolve Pick-a-Peck or the other Pokemon you could catch, and others that you just not revealed? So did you evolve any Pokemon during your playtime?
No, I mean, and it was less that we weren't allowed, it's just we didn't have enough time to level up any Pokemon enough to evolve them.
Because you said you got Poplio up to level 12, but I guessing you didn't. The other Pokemon weren't that high a level, and
exactly, there was 9 or 10. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd assume Pick-a-Peck is probably around the level 16 mark, like Pidgey and
that's
whatnot.
my guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Anyway, we have Vargo0921 Marco, who wants to know, how does the opening feel? Does it feel slow and filled with tutorials, or are you quickly thrown into the action?
I'd say you're pretty quickly thrown into the action. I mean, it's not immediate, but it definitely does not feel like a slow, heavy-handed tutorial. I mean, it's a pretty brisk pace from the very beginning.
Yeah, it felt moderate to me. Like, it felt right in line with what I remember the other Pokemon games. Maybe, keep in mind, my experience is more limited. I would say it to me felt a little bit longer than what I remember of Generation 1, but that was also, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, or whatever, so...
Something like that, yeah.
That comparison could be off base.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to go back and replay the beginning of Oros and X and Y to really, and other ones, to really make a perfect comparison, but to me, it felt faster than what I was expecting.
All right. Next up is Mock Troyd, who wants to know, can you give us an estimate of how many different Pokemon, old and new, did you see?
I want to say between the wild Pokemon and the trainer Pokemon that we fought, I want to say it was around 10 to 15. Like, it's hard to say for sure, but I want to say it's around that.
Sounds accurate.
Next up is Alex Iresq, who wants to know, were you able to fiddle-faddle... Sorry, that made me laugh. Were you able to fiddle-faddle with the menu? What's available with the quick communications option?
Yes, we were able to fiddle-faddle with the menu, but we can't talk about quick communications. We weren't allowed to really explore or talk about any internet-based options, in our demos. So, can't really talk about that, but we were, yes, able to fiddle-faddle with the menu.
Anything stand out about the menu? Is it clean, functional, anything new?
Yeah,
weird?
I mean, you've already seen it, you've seen some of this in trailers, but I really like kind of like the paint stroke aesthetic that comes up like for abilities during battle, and then the menu itself is, it's functional, it looks nice, it's clean, I mean, yeah, it looks nice.
Cool. Next up is Andre Lop24, who wants to know, is there any 3D... Oh, wait.
Yeah, so basically only during the Pokefinder segments and during certain cutscenes, but in terms of gameplay, 3D seems to have been completely removed.
Mm-hmm. And as you said already with the Pokefinder, it still screws with the frame rate.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't seem like Game Freak were too particularly concerned with optimizing the game enough to have it run well in 3D. I think they just wanted to have it run really well, and with 3D off, and make it work equally well on both the old 3DS and new 3DS.
Mm-hmm. Next up is Elm Lugo, who wants to know, how is the Pokedex divided, and is there a hint of new fossil Pokemon?
So, we can't talk too much about the Pokedex in general, obviously, but I can say that the Pokedex is divided between islands. So, I mean, I would assume that there would be a national Alola Dex that, that also counts toward, but I did notice that there are kind of local island dexes as well. So, there's, I mean, we can't talk too much about the overall Pokedex, but there is that element.
Mm-hmm. What about the fossil Pokemon?
Oh, right,
I'm
guessing, I mean, I didn't see one, but I don't think we'd be able to talk about it if we did.
Yeah, like even just in the first gen, you didn't encounter the first fossil Pokemon, the first fossils until after Brock, so...
Right, exactly.
Alright, next up is Busterman64, who wants to know, with a joke question, does your mother have her own room, or is it like the older games and she just sleeps on the couch?
That's so funny. So finally, your mom has gotten an upgrade. She actually does get her own room in this game. So yeah, like she has her own room separate from your own trainer's room, and it's funny. I didn't even know we had this question until Derrick pointed out to me that oftentimes it seems like your mom doesn't have her own room in your own house, and I didn't think about that, but it's true. But in this one, she definitely does.
Yep. Next up is Amp Fabulous Snake, who wants to know, did you hear the full version of Team Skull's battle theme?
Yes, I mean, although it was obviously at the same time we were talking to the Nintendo rep, so I didn't get to put in headphones or anything. It didn't stand out to me as being all that amazing, and that's something that kind of extends to the battle themes in general. It's just they're not hooking me like they usually do. That said, the rest of the music, like in Town and Roots and things like that, is awesome. So I'm just hoping the battle themes grow on me.
Okay. Well, going off of that, we have Jacob the Twit, who wants to know, what's the music like? Is it good?
Well, there you go. So, overall, I would say it's good, and I mean, I love Pokemon soundtracks. I'm just, the only part of it that's not grabbing me so far, the battle themes, which I'm hoping they do later, because you hear those more than any other themes in the game, usually. So, the battle themes aren't quite as, they don't have that hook like they often do, but the rest of the music is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Well, going off of that, Squiddles Beats wants to know, what is the best musical track you've heard so far? So what's your favorite?
Oh, man. I want to say it's the first route's music. I don't know if it's called Route 1, I can't remember, but whatever the first main route that you're exploring is, that was awesome. It was obviously very Hawaiian influenced, like I feel like I could hear like a ukulele or, some sort of instrument like that, and it was just very up-tempo, very, kind of adventurous and exciting. I really like the route music a lot.
Nice. Next up is Jet Spectro, who wants to know, is there any hint of Hau not being the main rival?
Yes, as a matter of fact. So Hau, interestingly enough, he chooses the starter Pokemon that's weak to yours, kind of like Shauna and X and Y. So that kind of tells me that he's going to play the Shauna role, where, and then maybe a character we haven't been introduced to yet is going to play the role of the rival who picks, your actual rival, who picks the starter Pokemon who's strong against yours. So I don't know about that, but either way, Hau does not pick the starter that's good against yours. So I'm not sure.
Next up is RSN Brand, who wants to know, did you guys encounter any new moves?
Not offhand. I don't think so.
I think for early on, it's usually the typical tackle, growl, tail whip, all that good stuff. Actually, real quick, I saw this mentioned. I doubt you guys took notice to this or not, but I saw Joe Merrick mention this on Twitter, that apparently somebody noticed that the power of tackle is now 40.
Oh, I've been reading about that. I didn't check that, but yeah, for some reason I thought it was 40 already. What was it?
Well, it was 40 already, but it got a buff last gen to up to 50 to make it a little bit more useful. So now it's apparently, according to some other sources, it's been lowered back down to 40.
Okay, I mean, I'm sure that's probably true, but I didn't get a chance to actually check the stats of tackle.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you took a look or not, but yeah, otherwise I'm not too surprised that it's the same stuff that we've seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, next up is Boffy93, who wants to know, did you find out any town or landmark names on Melee Island? It bothers him that we don't know any town name yet.
Well, it's going to keep bothering him.
Yeah.
We can't really talk about that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, we did, but we can't talk about them. Like, we're literally not allowed to talk about the names of anything on the island. So, yeah. I mean, you'll find out soon-ish when the game comes out, but yeah, we can't talk about them here.
We might even learn a few thanks to the demo that's coming out next week. So.
Yeah, true.
That's true.
Yeah. Finally, our last question for this is Mr. Caswet, who wants to know, would you call this a reboot of the series?
No, I would call it a celebration. It does not feel like a reboot at all, like even in the least. But it does feel like a celebration. Like it just feels like again, there's a positive vibe within the game that that there's just kind of there's a sense of just having a good time, being nice to people, and again, the people inside, like the NPCs in the game, are like giving thanks to nature and Pokemon, and you have like the return of the like the Alolan forms, so you get to see some older Pokemon come back. And it just kind of feels like a celebration of everything that Pokemon is, it kind of like, which is very fitting for the 20th anniversary game. And yeah, I mean, but it does not, I want to make it clear, it does not feel like a reboot. Like, it definitely feels like they're building off of, this legacy that they've been building up for 20 years. So it does not feel like a reboot. It feels like a celebration.
It feels as much of a reboot as any other Pokemon game does.
Right, exactly. It's so... In the sense that it's like a soft reboot, I guess, because you're starting over from a new region and you're catching new Pokemon. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it doesn't feel like they're not letting go of everything that came before. They're still building off all 6 generations of like lore and Pokemon and gameplay, innovations and things like that.
All right, well, I think that covers it for our Sun and Moon Q&A. So thank you for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to like us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Pokemon and other things gaming too. Until next time, bye.